All right, Happy New Year, everyone. I wanted to try something new and transition away from some of the Twitter content and start to bring it to video. Why is that? I just think the video format is probably the best way to go these days. It's the most popular format. People tend to engage more, view it more, and I think it also is good to just be able to dive deeper on some of these topics rather than be constrained to a tweet and try and squeeze everything in and have to watch the character count. So we're going to see how this goes. And if it doesn't work, no harm done. So what I plan to do is doing at least like a monthly report of some kind and really take a deep dive on a certain subject that I feel passionate about, trickle in some stuff about trading, self-improvement, all sorts of things that I might be reading or thinking about, and some different ideas that you guys might be able to take away with you to improve your life and make applicable to yourself. My trading specific content will still be professionally produced by SMB. It will still be free. But at the end of the day, video content is free, which is what is king from, which is what I've learned from some of that. I don't know if I'll ever properly produce these. I think part of the appeal is the ease of this, rather than have to do a bunch of like well-constructed tweets with images. It's kind of nice to just be able to bang this out real quick. But maybe eventually I'll produce this with images and production quality. But we'll see. Step one for habit, as they say, is always making it simple, making it easy, making it fun. And this is low maintenance enough where it's something I feel like I can stick with for the year if the feedback is good and people like it. So what I really wanted to tackle on this first video was pretty much goal setting, annual reviews. This is something I tweeted about and did a slide deck. When I'm in New York City with SMB later this month, I'm going to produce that video. Finally, it got a little delayed because of the holidays. But I'll be tweeting out my actual goals. And so one thing to keep in mind is back in the day for all the past years, what I would normally do is I would do a goal for my personal life, a set of goals and review, and I would also do a set of review and goals for my trading life. Nowadays, trading isn't so high of a priority for me, so I don't really make trading goals so much anymore. So what I'm really going to be sharing with you all is kind of my 22 in review, then my 23 personal life goals. So as my goals say, last year was a big leap of faith leaving Trillium. I like to think I was pretty much at the peak of the career. For reasons maybe I'll save for a different video on a different day. It seemed to me like the right decision to kind of quit while on top and move on to the next chapter of my life, which involves a lot of projects like this and just sharing information and views and thoughts to help everyone kind of become their best self. And I really think last year was a big success. Like it was definitely scary at the time. Anytime you've been doing something where it's your whole identity, I was Lance Trader and it was my obsession and it's what I did probably 40, 50, 60, 70 plus hours a week. It's all I thought about. It's what consumed me for over a decade. But it was time to move on and see what that new chapter has for me. And what was so great is one of my priorities at the time was I really wanted to focus on relationships and finding those people that will really make me 10x better. Like who are the people that are going to inspire me, motivate me, make me smarter, healthier, wealthier, happier. And what was so great is I think last year I really found some of those people. On my goals, I black out some of the personal names and stuff, but a lot of those guys are part of my pod. They're reading these goals, and it's been really great doing that. You can't put a value on those people. Really, besides that, really cut down on the drinking. And a big thing was I did hire a team of sleep specialists to go to my apartment and really dive deep and give me a bespoke custom plan for kind of specific issues that were relevant to me. And so a big thing, reason why I left trading was honestly because of the impact it had on my sleep. Worrying about overnight moves, overnight positions, it really did impair the deepness of my sleep. And then once when I would wake up, I would be wired, I would be stimulated, I would be checking the markets. There was no going back to sleep. So that was something that was kind of the main reason why I hired these people to help me reprogram that habit. And thankfully, it's been a success. My Aura Ring sleep scores have been over 10% better, and over the course of my life, that's just such a massive health improvement. I feel so much better every day. So that was a really big win. I hit a lot of my physical goals and crushed them. I never thought I'd be able to do a half marathon at a 9 minute mile pace. That was a real shocker, partially due to good weather that day. Finished the year out with the 300 pound bench. I had been going for that goal for years, way postponed due to COVID, injuries, everything else. And ultimately, I found work that I just love doing. I love sharing these ideas and interacting with the Twitter world, with some of the advisory gigs I do, my nonprofit, the Impact Competition. So it's been great. And if you read through my 22 goals, you'll see is I really pretty much all these are green for a reason. Um, Again, like you don't just want to make goals and never look at them. The reason why I hit so many of these is because I'm constantly reflecting on these throughout the year and making sure I'm on the path I want to be on. So it really led to a pretty amazing, incredible, fulfilling year for me. What was so great is I think trading, between managing the office, training people, and worrying about my own trading at a very high level, it was a very stressful, all-consuming job. And so I think walking away from that definitely removed a lot of my valleys, right? And like all my low points. It was definitely some of the most stressful times, some of the most painful times. So without that, this year really was not, not. I've been through some trials and tribulations over the years, and this year was smooth sailing, which was really nice. And I think you always need to cherish those when they happen and be self-aware that like one of my sayings is, anytime everything's great, cherish it because there's going to be bad times ahead. And anytime there's bad times, just keep on pushing because ultimately there will be good times ahead. So in times like this, it's been a good year and I'm very grateful. And so I use that as a base to look at my year ahead and kind of what I want to work on in 23. And one of my big innovative ideas, I think, was coming up with what I consider my health standards for life. Essentially, I spoke with my trainer, I spoke with some other really smart people, did some research on my own to try to figure out what are 5 standards that not even necessarily five, there was no set number, but I wanted to find the most essential, what are the quintessential metrics for just health that, and what are the standards that I can hold myself to for my life. These were my Oura Ring sleep score, which factors everything from heart rate variability, resting heart rate, all sorts of great things, body fat percent, VO2 max, muscle mass, and alcohol intake. So if you think about it, those 5 scores, sleep is one of the pillars of health. Body fat percentage, if that's in range, you're lean, you're eating healthy, most likely. VO2 max is, of course, cardio health. Muscle mass is more strength and hypertrophy. And alcohol intake is just something I've always had issues with, but now I don't really drink that much. But in your 20s, you're always partying, especially as a trader in New York City or in Chicago. Um, so these were the 5 metrics I kind of settled in on and I'll get into details further. And then another big thing is this has been a big introspection year, um, thinking about just myself, my upbringing, those values. And after getting enough data points, I think I'm actually interested and will be partaking in an ayahuasca ceremony. Um, my thought process on this is I've always had kind of those hippie stoner friends that have been super, super gung ho, like 60 mile per hour, like 10 out of 10. Oh my God, best thing ever, must do this. But they were kind of the personas that I don't really think would give it a bad review. So pretty much anyone that was the typecast stereotypical, like, psychedelic psychonaut or whatever, I just totally discounted those opinions. And so the last couple years, I was waiting for enough. I was most interested in the straight edge people with no preconceptions, with minimal psychedelic use experience. I wanted those data points and what it meant to them in their lives. And this year, I finally became comfortable with the amount of people that I got feedback from, with the quality of those people. And so, what I found is there's enough people out there where no preconceptions, no biases. They weren't expecting anything out of it. They weren't the type of person that would do this. Um, One person was doing this to support his wife and had never even heard of any of this. And all these people pretty much universally walked away saying, oh my God, it was one of the best experiences of my life. Really works on a lot of scar tissue. And just 10 out of 10 recommended it. And so that's a big signal to me. Yes, you hear the horror stories. I'm kind of aware of them, but I've dabbled in some of this stuff before. I did discuss this with my psychologist. He was also, he thought I made kind of the perfect fit and the perfect argument for someone that should do this. So, all green lights, and I'm very curious. Also, I've done Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within before, thought it was great. My friend finally did Date with Destiny, swears by it, said it was even more incredible, so I'm signing up for that. And so ultimately, the other thing is if last year was the year of exploration and trying new things and finding the new chapter, I think this year I'm going to be kind of reducing. Um, Reducing everything from distractions, from cell phone apps, from cell phone use, from social media use, from different projects. Um, Pretty much if it's not something I'm super gung ho about, it's just going to be removed. I'm very lucky where I get to kind of choose who I want to be involved with, what I want to be involved with. So if it's something that I find draining, bye bye, it's going out the window. Because I really want to leave 2 hours per day for health, gym, cardio, mobility, and 2 hours for reading, thinking at the beginning and the end of the day. One great habit I really started doing this year is as part of the sleep. This helps immensely for sleep. First hour of the day, no cell phone. I'm outside doing light exercise, getting morning sunlight. Then an hour before bed, no cell phone, and I'm doing the sauna. Uh, the same way alcohol, pretty much even just a drink or two impairs all of your sleep metrics. The sauna is kind of the inverse. Even just half hour of 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half hour, hour of sauna, all my sleep metrics go in the right direction. So now getting more granular, you'll see all my 5 health metrics, their standards. Every year I do a blood panel just for general health. Absolute Rest was a sleep study I did. A lot of these are pretty obvious, but a lot of these carry over every single year. Some of these are new, some aren't. I bold the ones that are most important to me. This year, I'd really love to do an in-person meditation retreat. As you guys know, as part of growth, every single night I try to do a 1% better idea in my Evernote. Those used to be trading focused, now those are just self-improvement and life focused. One funny thing that's always comical is the Ted Lasso management and attitude. I am not the type of person that would like that show, but I actually ended up loving it after finally getting convinced to watch it. And really, I think the whole Ted Lasso management style is just being someone that builds people up and getting the right attitude and everything else. Finally, some cooking and photography, the ayahuasca, the phone habit. The phone is something I've really been more and more convinced is just so damaging. So that's something really big I want to start avoiding. Um, so let's see. Going down to happiness, being outdoors is just so important. Like those morning walks, getting outside. The more time I spend outside, the better my sleep is, the better my mood is. Um, Anytime I'm stressed out, my number one answer to turn to is just take a walk outside. Got some great travel. I love traveling and eating and trying new foods. A lot of hiking, so that's makes up a lot of the happiness. Impact competition goals, Paragonology and SMB, trying to do at least one video per month. Then wealth really isn't so granular. So now what I want to discuss is, so for each of these goals, I'm then going to drill down further. So what you haven't seen is like over the coming weeks, I'm going to try to get all this on the calendar that I can. I'm going to try and book everything I can. So for example, I've already booked the ayahuasca. I've already booked the Date with Destiny Tony Robbins thing. So I really try to commit as early as I can before my schedule gets full, before excuses come up. So those kind of get hard coded in. I find my time for the gym. I find really everything I can, and I kind of build the process for how I'm going to do each of these. So don't really think that this is the where it ends. This is simply where I start breaking those out from here on. Um, and so let's see what else from my notes. Um, So now with those goals kind of covered, happy to answer questions on that. One thing I also want to discuss was the trading year in general. I know most people on here probably for the trading content. Um, a lot of people struggled. I worked with a lot of people that struggled. Pretty much at every firm I work with, there were probably a lot of majority of people I think struggled this year. Um, but at the same time, some people didn't. I think some of the commonalities of those who struggled the most were those that were slowest to adapt their expectations. or their strategies, those that were most stubborn. Um, on one of the SMB calls, I proposed the thought, how can we most be like water? When the market is volatile and going nuts and really fast moving, how can we also match that and be aggressive in those times of craziness? Then when it's not, when things are difficult, when things are slower, how can we ease off as well and just match that speed? Um, the people that really grew in 2020 grew again in 2021 and thought they were going to grow once more in 2022. That's not really what the market called for. The market called for selectivity and adaptation and an open mind. And so the people that were still running long momentum strategies into the year ended up in a lot of trouble. Um, that said, I still think there were some really great opportunities this year. If you dialed in that selectivity, and started to go back to kind of old school trading, I think the ops were there. The number one broken slot machine, as apparent to everyone after all my tweets this whole year, was of course the CPI numbers every month. Anything Fed and rate related was big. There were some really, really nice ops, but you really had to turn off the jets, then still hit those hard, which is never easy to do. Um, but I think that's actually the reality of most trading. I would say this was not the worst year I've ever seen, certainly not the slowest. I mean, it was an action packed year, but it had some traps in it. It was definitely difficult. Um, for me, I've pretty much tweeted most of my trading. My big trades were some of the NASDAQ panics, it was the Alibaba Chinese KWEB overnight, it was the MSTR CVNA ARC trade write up that I've already done. I did have really only one kind of big loss this year, and that was Tesla recently. My one decent loss this year was Tesla, and I'll probably discuss that in detail in an SMB video rather than get side railed here. Um, but as I've started to go over the years of the people I mentor, I think the most common thing was that refusal to adapt and move to that broken slot machine. And a lot of the people I work with will say, um, I've never traded CPI before. That's not really my thing. In which my retort is, guess what? Nobody used to trade CPI back in the day. It never was a market moving event. What the market requires you to do, or most rewards you to do, is to adapt with what's in play. And so, really, nobody was used to this type of trading, but you had to skate to where the puck's going and start to build those and develop that over the year. Um, and that's kind of how most years go, to be honest, for some of the newer traders. 2019, I think it was, or maybe it was 2018, the year with the Trump trade sanctions with China and the tweets, the Trump tweets, like that was the broken slot machine of that year. And that year you had to be really selective, but when those tweets came, it would move the whole market and you needed to just hammer those sanction headlines. Um, that's really no different from some of the CPI stuff. There was no playbook for how do you trade Trump tweets, but we developed one, and that was that broken slot machine. And that's kind of how things go. Um, let's see, some other stuff I wanted to touch on. A couple books that have stuck with me this year. Die with Zero, not just because I'm one of those crazy philanthropist dudes, but just because I think everybody would benefit from that book and reflecting on what really are their money purposes. And I think it's kind of a quicker read, but it really does make you re-guess some assumptions. Um, Another book that I need to probably reread is 10,000, no, I think it's 4,000 Weeks is the name of it. Kind of a deep, harder read, but I think it's ultimately, it really resonated with me. It's for all the type A people like myself that over systemize, overthink, overdo, like all the productivity hackers like myself. It really makes you question and say, like, wait a second, what is the end goal of some of this? Is some of this kind of just productivity for productivity's sake and not so smart? So those were kind of maybe the standout books for me this year. Didn't really love too many. I read a lot of duds. Um, One final thing I want to discuss is, so why am I kind of so hating on Twitter all the time? It's actually not because of the trolls. Despite despite what people would think, the trolls really don't personally bother me. I think what's really astounding is the trolls are actually like probably less than 0.01% of followers. The issue though is they're also just the most vocal and visible ones. Um, And I think kind of the concept, like if you're not paying for something, you need to realize you're kind of the product. And really, nowadays in this era, our attention spans are the product. And my bigger issue with Twitter, besides just kind of creating this echo chamber of divisiveness for likes and the feedback loop of popularity, but it just ultimately, I always get sucked down these rabbit holes. Just because between the timeline and everything else. So for the most part, I use this Freedom app to block it. If you ever see me tweeting, I'm probably either traveling in a car, walking, or whatever. It's really not during most of the day. It's really blocked most of the day. Or I even use someone recommended the Mail Brew, where it just shows the daily tweets of the people I care about. And but I think what most people underestimate is yes, there's utility, yes, there's value, or of course, nobody would use it. But I think this is what I would call a trap, where when you add up the ledger on the other side and what you pay in uh, divisiveness and getting sucked down rabbit holes and distractions and how much it impairs. Like if you have, I don't even have that many followers, but when I log in, it's just endless notifications. So for me to find the stuff I want and the replies and interact with the people I want, you really have to go sift through so much. Um, so I just think for everybody's just productivity, mental health, I kind of think this YouTube method might just be a better path. I'm a tinkerer. If this doesn't work, I'll just stop and go back to Twitter. Or just do, realistically, it's going to be both in conjunction, but this was something I want to try. Um, so yeah, this was, I think, a solid first post. Let me know what you guys think of this method. Hope it was helpful. Happy to answer questions, and let's have a killer 2023. Thank you all.